What is up, achievers? I'm so glad that we are here today. Own your dyslexia. Turn your dyslexia into your greatest advantage. So glad that we are able to hold this webinar for you dyslexics and you who either know someone as dyslexic or have it yourself. Very glad to be here. I am your host, William Blake, and just very, very grateful because with dyslexia, many of you know that there are so many things that can go in with it. Whether it's your professional life, whether it's just connections and relationships, or whether it's your personal life where you get even doing more depth stuff with your family, kids, parents, whatever it may be. So it's exciting for us to be able to share with you guys things that have worked for us today as we bring on individuals and that we just have a good panel discussion to be able to share with everyone what's worked for us and can hopefully work for you. Go ahead and wherever you are streaming at, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and the other places, go ahead, drop in the comments, tell us where you're from, say hi to everyone else that's joining us, and we are just excited to be able to be here with everyone today. I'm going to bring on my co-host with me. Everyone calls you Tigo. I call you Tigo. Man, Tigo, I'm just so excited for this. What about you?
Oh yeah, I'm excited since we got to give homage to our brother here, Eric Swanson, because, we were at this event in Arizona and you stood up, walked across the room because we were working on sound stuff. You know how we do tech stuff. And you said, I asked you what you did and you told me, and I'm like, wait, I've never heard of a coach that works with people that have dyslexia. I have dyslexia. And that's where that started. I mean, we started talking about doing this event. And it's like, that was what, July, I think? Somewhere in the summer, it was hot because we were in Arizona.
In July, yeah, so hot. Oh my goodness.
It was hot. Our feet were burning through the shoes. But yeah, it's something that I have never seen before. And I want to thank you so much for putting this together because it's really needed. I know that I've always felt, like I was by myself for a lot of things, but especially dyslexia. I don't know a lot of people around me that either they don't admit they have it or they don't talk about it or they just don't have it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is awesome. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, and thank you for helping push it forward. Yeah, back in June or July where it was so hot, we both met each other and just from there was able to have the discussion of we need something. We need something to share with more people about dyslexia because it's one of those taboo topics you talk about, probably not to the extreme of like miscarriage, but not many people bring up like ADHD or autism. Those aren't conversations that you bring up when it's learning disorders or mental issues that we might have. And so every time I bring up dyslexia with someone, they're like, I can relate so much to that. And like, it's this instant connection that you get with them. So I'm glad that we have this platform to be able to share with those who will be watching us live and those who will be watching us afterwards to be able to share it. A few housekeeping. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Do your housekeeping.
Before we get into the awesome stuff of it, a few housekeeping things. Again, drop where you're from. We'd love to hear that, as well as we're going to be having this as a panel hour for you guys. So we are going to be up here. We're going to be answering questions. So whatever questions you have about dyslexia, about what to do with it, what can you achieve with it, as we have our stories and expertise and experience as we're sharing, drop your questions in the comments. We'll be able to pull them up and we'll be able to answer them for you guys. So that's really all the housekeeping I have. Drop your location, drop the questions you have, because we are just so excited to start this today.
And the other side of that is it's Saturday morning. I know it's 9 something in the morning over here. And I'm not sure where you are in the world, but it's midday back east. And with everything that's going on, I mean, the fires are still going on in California and they're still, I'm sending out my prayers and for safety and the things you never think about. I saw a post about the dogs and animals. I saw about how wild animals are now running out the forest into the city area because the fires are crawling up that way. And there's so much going on. So for people that are watching this in post, and it's recorded, still drop your questions, drop your comments, and we'll get to it. We'll reply to you in post because we understand, life's what happens while you're making other plans. And we had already had this in plan and in the works. And even, Dr. Cheri is a co-host today, but she's also a first responder. So she may drop in, or if I know Dr. Cheri, she's in California somewhere, helping people with the situation, because she did mention yesterday that if she could get out of here and get in there to help, she would go. So that may be where she is, because, she was there, one of the first calls for October 1st when it happened here, the shooting here. And she's been a part of a lot of the natural disasters and so forth that go on around our country. So if you're watching it in post and you say, oh man, I didn't get to ask my question, ask it. We'll still check it. It'll still ding on my phone, and then we'll get Coach William to jump on. And then we're going to just keep going, because this is the introduction of what we want to do. Correct, Coach? Isn't this the first start?
Yeah, this is the first one. We want to be able to gauge what is needed in this dyslexic community. And as we share out with other people, we hope other people stand up. And this is just the introduction. We are planning on making this multiple times into the future. And if there's like such a great response, we'll make it longer. We'll bring in more individuals to be able to share their stories and such. So yeah, just the intro to what's going to be happening.
So what made it safe for you to, if you don't mind me asking, what made it safe for you to share that you were dyslexic first? And then what made you say, you know what? I can help others that are in business or want to be in business understand that it doesn't stop you. You just learn how to adjust. Why did you decide to do that?
Starting off with a heavy hitter. Goodness, Tigo.
Isn't that what this is about?
It's exactly what it's about. It's just like when you were saying that question, my heart like skipped a beat, and the self-reflection part of me just went and took a breath. It's like when I was growing up, it wasn't something I'm maybe the unique one in society, but I never saw it as something that was not able to be talked about. Because as I grew up, I was bullied. I felt lonely. The elementary school kids thought it was like cooties and contagious. For those who are out there, it's not, by the way. So they avoided me through middle school. People teased me about it. And even in high school, I remember walking down the hallway after lunch with my friends. And as I would walk down the hallway, they'd turn right into the honors English class. And all my friends were in there. It looked like a door that I could just never enter. And then I walked a few doors down to an English class where the kids didn't really care about what was being taught. And it was just one of the hardest things to be able to do. And so my entire life, it was just this challenge and difficulty that up till about halfway through college, I was like, dyslexia kind of sucks. And it sucks that I can't get rid of it. And that's just going to be with me the rest of my life. And about that halfway through college is when a question popped in my mind, what if I could do more? And so I thought about, okay, if I can do more and my dyslexia probably is holding me back, let me just learn more about it. And I learned about the advantages of it with perspective and out of the box thinking, with being able to have more empathy and communicate better. And it was just all these different advantages that started to pile up. And I'm like, oh, that is kind of cool. And so then I started to share it with other people. I'm like, hey, I know I stumble over words, but did you know that dyslexia, that I have it and that it's cool? And then some of my other friends were like, oh, I also have dyslexia. That's really cool. I never knew that about you. And so it's like these small moments where I shared it and I'm like, oh, maybe there's actually more dyslexics than I initially thought from beforehand. And so it was just that the pile up to where finally got to the point I'm just like, I don't want it to be the taboo topic. I want it to be something that we can actually talk about and share, build a community off of, and really support each other. So that's kind of where it all started.
And what made you decide to take it all the way to the level of coaching others?
I found that it's through pain that we progress. And as I have achieved many things through the grace of God and through my own actions, to be able to go from struggling with reading, writing, and speaking to then writing my own books, reading 60 books a year, and then being on stages, being able to speak instead of stutter like I did when I first started out. I wanted other people to have that same thing, or at least have that spark, that glimmer of hope. And that's kind of what started it all. I wanted to be a beacon of light towards others, you could say.
For me, it's different. I mean, you're like one of my kids. You're young enough to be one of my kids. And when I was in school, I mean, nobody talked about dyslexia. We didn't even know what it was, and you're talking 60s, 70s, 80s. And it's like nobody knew what it was. Nobody talked about it, at least not in my schools, not in my community. And I had, very hardworking sharecropper parents. They were sharecroppers in the South when they were kids. They adopted me at an older age. And it's like, my dad said, you're just not good at everything. You're good at math, be happy about it. So all of us can't be, good at everything. And it would drive me nuts. So I didn't find out that I was dyslexic, and mine is different than a lot of people that I know. I didn't find out that I fell under the category of dyslexia until I was in my 20s. I just thought everybody else was smarter than me. I thought everybody saw newspapers the way I saw them and books the way I saw them, because I don't see things backwards. For me, I don't see spaces in the words when I'm tired. So reading a physical paper book is when I was a kid, take away every toy that I have and ground me in my room for the rest of the summer. Don't make me read this book, because it was such a struggle to see where the space was in between the words. So that was tough for me. And then a doctor told me in my 20s, oh, I believe you're dyslexic. And I'm like, what's that? And that was mid 80s, what's that? And they were like, well, that means this and that, but yours is a little different. And I thought, yeah, okay. And I didn't read my first book by choice until I was, it was 1987. So I was 24, 25 years old. And it was Tina, the Tina Turner story, and it took me months to get through it, a few pages every night. It took me months to get through that thing. And when we did get through it, we had a party. My friends and my family, we threw a party because I read a book word to word. I didn't skip a page. I didn't go, oh, I got the gist of it, moving on, like I had done my whole life. I actually read this book. I still have that book with all of his dog ears and everything. I still have it. The ironic thing that it was the Tina Turner story that I decided to read, but at least I read a book. Things are different now, and I'm so glad that they are different now, and people can talk about it. And for me, it's a whole new world with AI and all of that, and I'm sure we can get into that. But also with computer screens, when I get tired now and I can't see the spaces, I just turn the brightness up on my computer, which is probably what's damaging my eyeballs. But I can turn the brightness up and I can force the light through the spaces, and I'm able to read fine on the computer. I still can't stand picking up a physical book and going, once upon a time, oh, come on, kid. How about if I just tell you a story?
Yeah. Oh, it's it's so cool. It's so interesting, the stories we have, because I got diagnosed when I was in the first grade. You didn't know about it till like later in your life, and it's amazing that it doesn't matter when you know about it. We're all a part of this community, and it's one of the coolest things ever. For those who are watching, again, make sure to drop your questions, because we're going to be able to answer them for you guys. And Tigo, I want to also bring Dr. Cheri on with us.
Where is
she's
she?
Also wonderfully here.
Hey, sis, how are you?
I'm great. Talk about fussing with your morning, trying to get things to work. Got a lot of frustrations.
You were, you had grabbed shovels and lights and food, and you were knee deep in a mountain somewhere. I literally, I'm like, she's not here. She's gone. She's out there fighting. I know you.
But it goes perfectly with today's topic. And, how do we adjust to change when we're so used to a routine? And I don't use StreamYard very often, because obviously even like with lighting and setting and having to move, and oh boy, it's one of those things. And Tigo, what you were talking about with books, even that, most people don't know that less than 20% of people actually ever completely read a book.
Is it true that
Yeah.
70% of people don't get past the Ford? Not just people with dyslexia, but in general,
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah,
get past the Ford?
this is the worldwide population as a whole when it comes to reading, is that only about 20% will complete a book.
Wow.
Now, of that, men, it's about, I want to say the last stat I read was 3% will make it back or front to back. See, you saw some of that in me too. I was a child that read all my books backwards. We didn't call it dyslexia then. But I still look at things all the way backwards.
He doesn't know.
Yeah. So this is such a great topic and such a fun thing to come into on a beautiful, bright, beautiful Saturday morning and say, hey, we're entering the brand new year, and we're too old to sit there and go, oh my gosh, new goals for 2025. And it's one of those, hey, new approach to 2025. We're just going to accept all the beautiful things about us. I love, William, it's so nice to finally meet you. I've heard amazing things about you. And I'm glad to see that, having a business coach that works with dyslexia in the background of their mind of like, okay, I know how to work with this. It's kind of like me as a psychologist or as a clinician going, hey, by the way, I'm so neurodivergent that I didn't even catch on until about 15 years into my practice going, that's so ADHD. It's so much fun. Oh my gosh, this is why we do what we do. And so having coaches in our spaces for each of our different things is one of the more beautiful parts and open parts about having an access to resources for us as entrepreneurs, for us as adults, for those of us that are just kind of skimming the internet and saying, hey, I kind of think something's going on. It feels a little bit different, but I really want to succeed in my business world or in my academic world or in my relationship world. There's got to be something out there for me. And even with my practices, stemming back, 25 years, because I'm 27. So I had to start at least when I was walking. I'm Asian, although I told it well. So it's 20 years ago, putting these things together and having clinics for kids that were primarily ASD, so what turned into the autism spectrum disorder, it wasn't when I started, and ADHD, ADD, all of these learning disability, cognitive disability, and those that were born with a myriad of different side effects from different exposures, et cetera. I did high-risk pregnancy. So looking at behaviors and some of the things that come up when you're working with children is, how do we teach children differently? If we're ever going to change the dialogue, we have to change the education. And that's one of the things that I did early on by allowing kids to say, hey, I can't focus on that thing right there, or I am going backwards and that letter is upside down this way and this letter is upside down this way. So I would literally rotate their paper and go, see, that's what it looks like. That's how some of us see it. Turn it back around. That's how you see it. Or allowing them to bounce subject to subject. That's one of the bigger parts of neurodivergence and any of the what is still considered learning disabilities, including dyslexia or certain parts that affect speech. It's giving the space and the time to say, hey, you know what? It's okay. You get this. We understand. You get it. You just get it in a different way. Not everybody, especially the most impatient people, it's always going to be adults, namely teachers that have to fit a curriculum, because, we've all had jobs at some point or in our life. There's the things that we have to do. So explaining to kids, hey, teachers are just doing their job, kind of like your job as an older sibling or as the younger sibling is to annoy the older sibling. And man, you're doing your job. Good job. They really don't like it. Well, teachers are doing their job and they have expectations. But getting out enough positive information, workable information, and showing success stories, like massive success stories that you guys have as business professionals, to say, what makes you think that dyslexia or ADHD or ASD or any of these things that would be considered some level of setback are going to be a reason to ever set you back? No. This just gives you an advantage. Like, that's that master game of chess you've learned how to play that not necessarily everybody learns how to play. Right?
Absolutely.
I'm watching your guys' faces and you're like, I just
It's-
had
You're
somebody
just
tell me
making
as
me
a
think.
kid.
Yeah, you're just making me think. And Alan popped in, hey, Alan, and he asked, is there a difference in IQs and people who have dyslexia versus others who do not?
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing, so I am trained and I have performed, and I don't do it very often because it's IQ is intelligence quotient based on standardized testing. So whether it's Stanford Binet or the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, or the Wechsler Children's Intelligence Scale, I've performed both over the years. And there's the first part is it is geared and normed to those that actually have an education or come from an educated family. And the reason I say that is because for those that have never taken actually a formal IQ test, have done a full psychological battery. That's just a number of assessments in a row that gives us what a person's IQ, and that could be a whole nother day. But it's a lot of it is historical questions. So when you look at the cultural norming and people from other cultures, especially here in the United States, people come in from all different countries, all different cultures. So they don't learn some of the historical components, or if they're taking that exam or that test or that assessment at different points in their life, it doesn't register a good portion of that section. So it's a number. Yes, absolutely. With dyslexia, it's like the spatial stuff, amazing. There's little blocks you put together and you follow little maps. Watch somebody that's dyslexic or has other types of learning disorders and autism and ADHD. Oh boy, that's fun. It's like, ooh, fast.
Yep.
Or like the number series. Now ask them to read a paragraph and answer the right sentence, structure, formation. And you're going, yeah, right. Can I go back to the little colored blocks with two colors? It's red and white. And I want to follow a picture. It doesn't mean that they're less intelligent. It's a different type of intelligence. One of the things that, again, general public really should hold on to and understand and grasp is that most of our major inventions are industrialization. These things came from people that learned differently. Okay, keep this in mind, learned it very differently, learned in a way that they weren't subject to societal pressure. So what we would consider like, oh my gosh, you're not emotionally intelligent right now. So I'm also not emotionally distracted. And understand where a lot of these things that we have today come from. There's a brilliance that comes with different types of thinking patterns, different types of learning methods and learning ways. So what you guys offer, and even with me and my massive neurodivergence that I won't medicate, what I offer in teaching is just a different way to learn. It's great. It's like, why wouldn't we want to expand the continuum of what we have available as resources to us? So that is a different type of intelligence that may not always be scored or scoreable. So Alan, it's really that, super high intelligence is a pretty common thing, like ridiculously high. Genius high is also seen often, but not on a registered scale with something like that, because they'll show really, really low on just a number format. And anybody, if you're doing those online personality tests or IQ tests, it's okay. We're all geniuses on those, I promise. Because for $14.95, you can also see how you're going to do in your relationships, because you're so brilliant. You're just going to find that person. So keep those things in mind too. But it does feel good to get those high numbers and go, yeah, score. Absolutely.
I remember. Funny. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember when I did one of those IQ tests, it was like, oh yeah, I'm as smart as Einstein. Heck yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, and the two highest IQs that are recorded, there's a reason we call them savants. The Marie Savant. So there is that piece. And now she should be about 12 now. The 12-year-old girl in Mexico. So the two highest recorded IQs ever are female. This is why we have these names behind it. That's another fun fact. Most people don't know that Savant is actually Marie Savant. I don't know if you guys knew that.
No, but you know all those stat stuff. I never know that stuff.
Hey, pick up, 1,000 useless bits of information. It's a book. Talking about reading a book back and forth, and I just randomly open up pages. You just have to have these like random facts when you're on a plane for
useless information. Okay.
it was one way to keep people from, bothering me because I was going through 1,000 bits of useless information. And when you spit out some of those fun facts, they're like, why? I'm never going to get back that 2 minutes of my life. I'm like, But now you know something new.
That's funny. That's funny. All right, we got here and we're talking about dyslexia. We're all coming at it from a different perspective. And when I was, like I said, when I was a kid, they didn't call it dyslexia. Heck, the first IQ test I took, they actually read the questions to me because I was so young, and I just answered them. I knew because I had a photographic memory back then. It still takes pictures from time to time now as I get older. But I could answer anything because I'd seen it before, or I'd heard it before, and I could play it back. What about, and maybe you guys can answer it, maybe you can't. What about dreaming? Because for me, I dream in full color and I can control my dreams. It's like if I like my dream, I can get up, go to the bathroom, come back and start it again where I left off and keep going. Or I can scrub it back like a video and take a different angle because I didn't like the way that one was going. So what about that? Do we dream different, or is this my crazy brain?
That's interesting.
I'm going to let William answer how he dreams, and then I'll answer in because it did. Yes, dreams are one of those things that we do, and I do.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your expertise on that, Dr. Cheri. For me, dreaming, I dream full color. At times I can control it. Sometimes I get like awareness halfway through the dream and I'm like, oh, I can actually control it. And then it's like one of the coolest things in the world. But I'd say for the most part, it plays out in more of a story type mode. So I get put into a situation of whatever fictional fantasy thing that my brain loves to put me in. And whether it's a dream or a nightmare, it just plays out this whole thing to where I'm acting as the main character or the individual to just go through a sequence of something to where then I wake up at some point. So that's for me. It's more like a story type dreaming. What about you?
Indiana Jones.
Yes. I've had the Indiana Jones. I full on dodged the boulder and yes, rolled around and then hopped in the Jeep. Yes. So most people do not dream in full color. Most people don't dream where they
at
can.
All.
Well, they do. They'll have fragmented pieces of flashes of their day. The trauma brain, or those that are recovering from a series of trauma, will have that come in because our dreams are our subconscious place, our unconscious place, where we don't have our cognitive ability to say, I don't feel like dealing with that right now. So it comes out in the dream space. But just like those in our waking times that we have the ability to visualize and we have that ability we see the story. So like those that are in the film industry or any kind of media, communications, arts, entertainment, you can picture something in color. You can picture things, how they come together and work. But that, unfortunately, that is not a commonplace. So that's what also happens in dreams. When you can go in there, because much of your waking day is like your sleeping time, you're like, I'm going to make this decision. But in your dream time, you do have more control because it's less distractions. It's only the stuff that you put in there as opposed to all of your environmental cues and bothers and, annoyances, if you will, that come in and help us get distracted and go in whatever direction we can possibly go in or get completely stuck in. So in our dream state, you're like, yes, I'm in full control, baby. I'm going to ride this ride. I know exactly who I want there. I know exactly how that's going to look. I know exactly how everyone's going to respond. When I get up, I mean, you know what? And I even want to go right back to that space. For someone that doesn't have that component or a different set of networking or firing of their brain, they don't dream like that typically. So it is something that's a little bit more reserved and a lot more animated when you're talking about those with dyslexia, those with ADHD, those with autism, because our brains work differently. It's wired differently to go into different places very, very rapidly. And so, but our mind is our quiet space when we're sleeping.
Not mine. Mine is noisy as heck. And because we're in film and television and all that stuff, it's like I had an idea for a film, which I texted you last night, I think.
know.
And we'll talk about it later. But because I had that idea, I literally directed half that film in my dream last night,
Yes.
scenes and placements and
And
product,
that's it.
it was like I'm zooming in, I'm doing wide shots, and it was all in my dream. But I know that, my brain functions a little bit different. But I wanted to acknowledge Darlene. Hey, Darlene. She says, I know I dream, but I feel like I don't hardly dream ever. And of course, Junko Williams is out there. And she said, good question about dreams. Junko Williams, we'll get into that one day, but June has been one of my superheroes since the 80s. And I just love it when she's in the corner because she sees and hears things and helps me break it down, which is awesome, to have somebody in my corner like that. But I want to ask the question from what I stated earlier when we first started, and Doctor wasn't here yet. When I was a kid, there was nobody talking about dyslexia. And it made me think when we were talking and Coach was talking about, his journey and his career, there's got to be a ton of people out there that are in my age group or older, the boomers, that were never diagnosed with dyslexia. They just, as my dad said, we can't be good at everything, and that's the way it is. So at this point, if they're in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, is there a way for them to find out if they have dyslexia and learn how to deal with it in their, in this quarter or whatever of their life? They may be here to 120. They want to do stuff.
Oh, absolutely. So dyslexia and anything that revolves around the brain, that is in the field of psychology in terms of diagnostic materials and testing for these items. So this isn't something that you go to a medical doctor for. Typically, we've always seen, or we hear nowadays, that people go to their pediatrician if they believe that their kid has a possibility of dyslexia or other type of learning disorders. That is because of insurance purposes to get referrals. That's not because that's the person that does the diagnostic testing. Diagnostic testing is done by those of us that have done our clinical PhDs in psychology, and we work through the brain itself. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't be done at 50, 60. Beyond 86, we're not going to do it. And I promise you there's a reason why, because we all will have a degradation of the brain. So it will all look a little bit different. It's the aged brain. It's like, yeah, because that's also the time we're going to do whatever we want. We can act however we want. Nobody really should be telling us like, hey, go behave yourself. But if you are in that generation, just the baby boomers generation, no, it wasn't something that was ever discussed. Even as Gen X, it wasn't something that we discussed in our realm, much like ADHD. We just got all thrown into the gifted classes because they're like, oh my gosh, you're done with your work so quick. And now you're bugging everybody else and you work too fast. Now we're just going to put you over here. And there's plenty of people that fell into those GATE classes or gifted and talented education classes because they were dyslexic. They just learned how to adapt very, very early on. But if you feel like there's a struggle, there's opportunities to say, hey, well, I do feel like like you said, you skip the spaces in between words. I always, and anybody that watches me will kind of look a little bit like a confused puppy. They do the head tilt because I always start a book from the back and I work backwards. Does that mean that that is dyslexia? No, it's actually, it's a hand preference piece for me. But if you know you're skipping pieces, just go and make an inquiry. Is this something that I want to do? How can I go and learn different? If you're at the age, and this can be anywhere from 30 to 70, if you're at the age where you're like, I just don't want to have to go and take a bunch of tests, but I've felt like this was here and it just didn't get acknowledged. Well, we can't go back 40, 50 years and say, hey, by the way, you guys missed me. I need some validation right now. Just hop on and go and find somebody like William, find somebody like you, find somebody like me, be like, hey, I need a skill set. I really need a skill set. I need some guidance. One of the other big places that I love is expert ADHD coaching. And it is set for executives that have ADHD. So if you feel like you're in that spot, start searching. We have the internet now. We don't have to go through card stocks at the library and figure out like, hey, how do I deal with dyslexia at my age? Google. If you don't even want to type, talk to text. Go ahead and do it that way. But yeah, you can get formal testing if you feel like that's going to ease your mind, because finally I feel better that I have an answer. Sure, you can do it. There's no harm, no foul in it. And any opportunity to learn is a great opportunity to learn. So you can go and search and find new habits and create new habits and skills just because, with or without the dyslexia.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my follow-up question with that, because I've known several individuals who are diagnosed and who aren't diagnosed, and there, in my experience, hasn't been anything of whether you know about it or not in the going forward and trying to achieve a goal or achieve a dream that you're doing. Like, do you have to be diagnosed, or is it more just like, it'd be pretty cool to know, but let's actually talk about how to get you going to what you want?
Right. Sometimes it helps to know, and this has to do more from like an employment stance, or more for an accommodation stance, or more for if you see yourself falling into that world of disability insurance, and you know that it's going to be difficult for you to maintain a job. And so you're going to have gaps in employment. So you're going to want that formal diagnosis for other reasons. Say dyslexia is a compounding or a comorbid, meaning has a medical and a mental health condition that have come together so that it makes a stronger case. In those instances, it does provide such a relief mentally that, okay, I have a formal diagnosis, I can move forward in the plans that I have because it specifically needs to be done. But some people, when they do find out right away, especially as older adults, a little bit of resentment starts to set in, a little bit of letdown, disappointment. Oh, wow, maybe this is why. And you start reflecting maybe in the negative space. This is why I didn't succeed the way I wanted to. This is why I missed all of those things. And so it's really about changing the phrasing. It's not so much that this is why all of these things must have happened to me. It's like, oh, bam, no wonder I really can put stuff together a whole different way. And the other people didn't understand it around me. It's like, let's talk in our 21st century tone. Oh, my IP is going to be so protected because nobody could figure out how I did that. That is where you can embrace dyslexia, right? Versus go, man, now that I know, that just really sucks.
Yeah, knowing you're going to find a way to get IP in there. I'm working on it. I'll get IP in there. I kid you not.
I was trying to do that for your techie piece.
I know. I appreciate it. Darlene says that, oh, by the way, happy birthday, Darlene. She said she's 71 and ADHD as well. Her birthday was January 4th. So, hey, happy birthday to you. You look fabulous. And then Alan asked the question, what sports do children with dyslexia excel at? Or is that something a parent should avoid forcing their own children's experience? What do you think, both of you? I played sports in high school and in the military and all of that. I love
I'm going to let William go first.
I don't know. Go for it, Coach.
I would love to take this on first. What sport? I don't think, in my experience, it goes back to like what the child loves, like what they love to do. Because I've had several individuals come to me and be like, Willie, this is like my kid, they're dyslexic. Like, I'm trying to get them to read. I'm trying to get them to be better because they're so far behind. And you can see that their parent insecurities are coming out on their kids. And they're just like, what do I do? And I always tell them, I'm like, what do they love to do? And I'm thinking of one in particular. She told me, my son loves to play soccer. And I said, that is awesome. Focus on that. Focus on building confidence. Focus on building that unresilient. There you go. There's dyslexia right there. Build that resilience. Build up that courage and that happiness that brings in that. And that will carry over as you are reading, as you are writing, into spelling and speaking. And I've always seen it that way, to where for Alan, the specific thing, I don't think there's a sport, and maybe Dr. Cheri, there is actually one, but it's more just like, what do the kids love to do? Let them excel in their creative mind, those creative juices, and then let that confidence transfer over into them being able to learn the way to get through that dyslexia.
Bingo. Because there is nothing worse than forcing a child to do anything that they don't want to do, other than the things that they're legally bound to do, like go to school. Yes, kids, you have to go to school. We all have to live and do things, live with and do the things that we don't want to do, like, jobs and chores and laundry and actually putting the laundry away. But when it comes to sports, Coach is absolutely correct. If there isn't a desire and a passion and that go get them feeling out of the child, you are going to get resistance. You're going to get fight. You're going to get more likely potential injury because they're not paying attention in the way that someone who's very, very passionate about a sport or really wants to get into it, they're just not going to be on that same page. And so that is vital in this instance. And there's going to be the thing of they like it for about 15 days, 4 hours, and 3 seconds, and then they don't like it anymore because somebody had an expectation from them to do a certain thing that they weren't good at just yet. So again, this is where parents really have that opportunity to be like, look, that's awesome. There's this thing that you already don't know how to do. So you get to get it from scratch, which means we can really make this and tailor this to you. That right there is such an advantage. You don't have like years of going back and trying to redo or unlearn a certain coaches or team's rules. We're starting you off fresh, kid. And so this is where the dynamic also plays a huge difference in the sports that you decide to select for a child. Because ultimately, yes, the parent has to sign as the liability component because all sports come with different levels of injury, whether it is single person sport like golf, the elbow issues, the sprains, the twists, there's those kinds of things. Then there's the contact sports, the football. Well, we know what head injury does and continued head-to-head pieces. It's like going through whiplash. Imagine that on a very small young brain. And then there's ones that just, don't have contact on purpose, but possibly contact, track and field. You fall, you bang your head. Whoops, we can't avoid all of these things. But the compassionate and passionate kid is going to spend a lot more time paying attention and learning their craft and learning that trade because they have to not only tap into their discipline, which is another type of piece that needs to be developed, they also tap into their motivation. So motivation, and this is another piece where, especially with dyslexia and other neurodivergence, we really get hard on ourselves in this culture and society to say, I'm just not motivated to do things. Motivation are the things that you don't have to do, but you really want to do. Discipline are the things that you have to do and you really just don't want to do. So making sure that we understand that we can activate and we need to activate both of those when playing sports so that we get the most out of it, where the kids get the most out of it and they have the less possibility of injury. That's going to be your primary focus as a parent.
For me, I played sports, and when we started in my house, me and my cousin's house, bowling was like requirement, like school. You had to go bowl. And back then, when I was a kid, yes, Coach William, we did it by paper. There was no little digital screen in the air that you got to, there was a piece of paper, and that would mess me up. If I didn't have to keep score, I was okay. But if I had to keep score, there was a problem. And I loved math. It was the way it was laid out with the little box, and you're supposed to put strike or spare. Thank goodness for technology, But the same thing with basketball or softball, the plays, the X's and O's and stuff would mess me up. But it's great to have somebody in your corner. And I was blessed to have a great friend or someone on the team that understood. They didn't know it was dyslexia. They didn't know what it was, but T didn't get that. It didn't work that way. So they whisper in my ear, okay, when this happens, go left, or we need 5 pens so we can win. That's all I need to know is that you got somebody in your corner. June asked, how about studying music or learning how to play an instrument? I know that I could learn by ear back in the day when I was in high school and we did music class. They've taken all that out of school now. I'm still upset about it. But reading music, yeah, just shoot me. I couldn't read music. All the little thingies and So, Coach, what about music?
I'm actually going to throw Uno or reverse. I'd love to hear Dr. Cheri first on this topic before I answer.
So music is one of the most healing, most advancing, most brain balancing thing and body balancing thing that we can do for anybody in general. But when more specifically speaking about dyslexia, it actually creates a rhythmic pattern that matches our brain waves. And so when we do learn music, yes, it might be very, very scrambled, and learning to play by ear is much better, especially for those that play like piano or drums and you're working with multiple bars and multiple notes on a single bar. And it's like, okay, yeah, too overwhelming. But the rhythm and the vibration that comes from music is the very same thing that re-regulates and resets our brains and our bodies. We know this from very old, ancient type thought and treatment. Tibetan sound bowls, it's 7 metals all put together to create a vibration that matches and resets our body. We also know that in the new technology world as biofeedback. We add these little electrodes, and guess what? It's the same thing, same sound. We can do this with our brain. Music does the same thing. Most recently, actually, it was just last week, they found that one of the higher end treatments that are showing the most positive results for dementia, which again, cognitive disorder and dementia and Alzheimer's do fall in the realm of psychology, not in the realm of neurology, just in case anybody needed to know that. But music is going into the preferred treatment space. Why? Because music is like what a pacemaker does for the heart to set it back to rhythm. Music does that for our brain. And so for children to learn that musical space, because their brain is going, we, put them behind music or put music in the background and put it loud enough. And that's okay. It's going to drive, again, anybody that's not in that space, they're like, how in the world are you thinking? Because that loud enough and with enough bass, bring down the treble when it comes to this. And that's a key piece, because otherwise the way the ear bones vibrate, it's going to aggravate them more than it's going to help. So bust up that bass a little bit. But that rhythmic piece, you're going to watch the whole body calm down. You're going to watch the cognitive process calm and ease a little bit more. You slide right into a rhythm, because now the brain, all 5 brain waves are working together. Simultaneously. Same thing with like sleep. It's getting them into a sleep pattern. Same thing with our body. Our body feels that same vibration, and it re-regulates the entire system. So playing an instrument is absolutely vital. I usually recommend that all children learn some level of instrument. And parents that don't have sensory issues or do have sensory, just get grab some earplugs, but let your kid thrive. Let them really come to play into this space, because music is one of the strongest pieces we can use.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
me too. No, I was just going to say, you just taught me something at 61. I never understood it, why certain music, if I'm in a certain mood or certain things are going on or it's just chaotic, I have to turn on music, but I can't like turn on, rock or rap or something, because it's, I love that music, but not now. I just can't listen to that now. And then it'll bring me down and calm me and get me balanced, but then at certain points when things are crazy, like we're about to do an event or something and it's just chaotic, I can't have high pitched people. There's certain people that go over there, yes, because it literally makes me feel like, ants are running up my arm, and I can't do this right now. And that's why it's great having like Alan and the Jesses and the Talias in the world around me, because they'll grab them and say, how can I help? What can I do? Because I'm looking at them like they're speaking some alien language that I have never heard before in my life, because I don't hear their words. I just hear the yelling,
and so there's a way that all of us can walk around as adults, because we have to deal with people no matter what. We don't get to isolate as much as we want to, isolate in a way that prevents us from interacting. So keeping on hand, and I've tested so many brands. I really only ever go back to one brand in particular. It's a travel set that comes out of Walgreens or Walmart, but the foam earplugs, because just like adjusting treble and bass on a stereo, to listen to music, you're adjusting the treble and bass in your surrounding. You could still hear all of your general conversation, because the purple ones in particular allow enough flow, but it removes that trouble. It removes that sensory component, and then also gives us the feedback loop of our own heartbeat, which is the most soothing sound that any of us have as human beings, because that's where we spent 9 months, is listening to a heartbeat. I mean, we could hear our own mother's heartbeat, even if we've never met the person, but we will turn and look in that direction. It's a fun little experiment to run.
You can get a bucket of the purple ones from Amazon. Everybody knows. I have a bucket of those and use them often.
Yes.
That's cool.
Wear them in public. Make sure, and I sign off on for my kids, or even with FMLA, that certain people need to wear earplugs. This is not a disrespect to the teacher or to the corporate environment, but it really is for the sensory issue, and to prevent recoil on somebody that has possibly dyslexia or other issues where they just cannot take the sharp sounds.
That's interesting, because I actually found out recently. I was talking to my mom about this, and I was telling her, I'm just like, we're going over the paper or something that back in the first grade when I was first diagnosed, the layout of everything with my dyslexia, and that I also have, and I'm not going to butcher this, I got this, auditory processing disorder.
Yeah.
And so my ability to take things in are a lot more sensitive, and this is just my understanding about it, a lot more sensitive than others. So let's say we're doing this right now and something were to happen outside, or the door opened or something like that, it'd be very hard to not let that affect me inside my head. And it's just so cool how kind of dyslexia isn't just like, boom, dyslexia, boom, not dyslexia. There's so many things intertwined. It could be auto processing disorder, ADHD, autism, like really it's so interesting how they all intertwine with each other.
Can I ask the question of generations? Because I'm a bonus mom. I haven't physically given birth to a child, but I am a bonus mom. Can your children have it? Can your parents have it? Or is it something to do with your body that it's just you?
No, there are so many different factors. So because this is it can be qualified in the learning disorder category. It can be qualified in other types of neurodivergent categories. There's also that possibility from exposure in utero that changed the dynamic of DNA. So that's something else to really consider, is that prenatal care and the way and how we expose ourselves during pregnancy can lead to things that are not genetically passed on. So no hereditary component for the dyslexia, but because of a certain type of exposure or a certain type of event or a certain type of chemical interaction, this has happened. Early onset falls, injuries, head injuries can lead to a type of scarring lesion on the brain that makes dyslexia now present. So it's not always that we're just born this way. There could be a whole series of things that come together. It's like almost the perfect storm. And so it's always like, let's look at the whole thing. Let's look at the whole picture. Same thing goes with any of the mental health conditions. It's like, we're still dealing with the brain here. And we're dealing with the body. We're working from a systemic place to really see, how did this come around? And, can my stepkids, my bonus kids, how can I recognize it in some of them? Because maybe I don't know, or for those that are adopted, and I have a lot of that in my life. It's like, I have no idea if maybe I did get it from there, maybe I didn't get it from there. Ultimately, yes, it's great to know if you're going to pass on genetic material one day, but now we have the beauty of genetic testing, and anybody can get in contact with me because I run full panels of expanded genetic testing, systemic immunology prior to, because one of the things that even with IVF, if anybody knows, I am a 3-time failed IVF. And so I went through, and I'm grateful in a certain sense, because one of the things that I've found out is that with all that hormone induction, it breaks the eggs as we're trying to, induce, like, okay, we want babies when we want to do so many of this. But a type of autism will come because it falls on one genetic marker as that egg was broken prematurely because it was expanded by basically chemical warfare of like, hey, you want to have babies, we're going to give you all of these things. We broke the seal on the egg too early, so it will show in the child this way. This is why I do IVF counseling for families or couples. I did it as a single professional woman, which it's actually more common than it used to be. There was a legal stance that wouldn't allow that before, but by the time I came around and I was able to do it, it was beautiful. But then I did all the genetics and worked with the systemic immunologist and said, what are all the factors of doing this? And how is this going to present in children? Because I was a children's clinician. So stuff like that, IVF, it's why asking proper assessment questions is really important. Those that were conceived via IVF, not just IUI, it may come in with speech delays. It may come in with dyslexia. It may come in with spectrum, something on the level of spectrum, only because of the chemical introduction and the rapid egg placement. So, and we're seeing this dyslexia will fall in higher percentages with those that are like agricultural based environments, janitorial based women, like especially if they're still in that janitorial space or housekeeping space while pregnant. We're going to look for, by age 4, 5, 6, some of the behavioral problems that, dyslexia would be one of them, other learning disorders, impulse control problems, bouts of upset because they're just not getting out fluid movements and fluid thoughts into words. And so this is where everything is all tied in together. So the things that maybe people didn't think about.
I know I never thought about it, and Coach, just so you know, I stalk you. So I know you're a great dad. I already know that because I stalk you and I see all your social media go by. My question is, before you had your children, was that a thought? Were you concerned that there could be, or were you just ready? It's like, if they are, they are. If they're not, let's just go. What went through your mind, if anything?
I think I was ready because I don't think dyslexia or anything of those were of like concern for me, but my wife is type 1 diabetic. And so I knew that my kids had a higher chance of being diabetic as well. And so I was preparing for that. And I think just as what's the word I'm looking for? As a compounding effect, just being prepared for that also helped me prepare for if anything else happened with my kids. My wife and I are good. We're adaptable. Life is still going to go fine. We're going to be able to figure out what's going on and help the kids out in whatever way it is. And I don't think there was like this huge thing of like, what's going to happen if they hit that? Not hit that, but like, what's going to happen if that occurs in their life? It's more of like, we can do this. We're a family and we love each other enough that we're going to make everything work.
I would be like, high five the kids. If it pops up one day, high five the kids and be like, look, now we have our secret code language that not many people are going to understand. And this is how we're going to tackle the world in the greatest way. I mean, they all of a sudden make them superheroes because that's what they are.
I love that. And I know, Doc, I know you're on a tight schedule. Can we go like 5 minutes over?
Oh, absolutely. I'm good.
Okay.
I planned for almost 2 hours just in case.
Just in case. Okay. Well, I think we'll go 5 or maybe even 7 minutes over because I feel like we would do a disservice and be remiss if we didn't tackle fear. Because to me, owning your dyslexia and turning it into an advantage, fear has a lot to do with that. For me personally, I stopped myself from, going in, like I'm on television. I do television. I've been producing and directing for 20 plus years. But if you slap a teleprompter in front of me, I'm running for the hills because I cannot read, a teleprompter and sound like I normally would sound on television. I would sound like, so today we're going to talk about, because it's slowly going up the screen, so I stopped myself. What about people that have dyslexia or some kind of thing going on that's making them go, I would love to own my own show. I'd love to be on stages. I'd love to start my own business, but I'm terrified of what's behind that door. How do we own our own dyslexia?
Oh, I mean, this right here is actually showing everybody that is taking the time to watch that yes, it can be done, that it's actually a lot of fun. And so if fear is your primary piece that's in the way, also use that as a massive driving force. Like all of a sudden, this is your vehicle. You're no longer a passenger. Tell yourself that I'm not a passenger to my stuff. I'm driving the car. What kind of car do I want to drive? I'm getting on my freeway. In fact, if my freeway isn't taking me where I want to go, there's this beautiful thing of I get to pave the road. And so how you talk to yourself, and this is so important, no matter what age you are, how you speak is how you live. Understand that you're your biggest obstacle, and fear, obviously, I mean, we're human beings. This is why we have fight or flight. Fear is going to stop us in our tracks to keep us safe when we need to. But if we're the only thing in our way, are we harming ourselves? Are we limiting ourselves? Should we do that to ourselves? Or do we change the dialogue, change our education on what we know about it and say, okay, I'm getting into my new vehicle. In fact, I paved the road. I don't know exactly where it's going, so I only did about 20 miles down. I didn't do 100 miles because I might have to pivot and shift, and really embrace that as an exciting piece. Why? Because once the person realizes that they're totally in control and they get to guide which direction this road is headed, all of a sudden it becomes a great grand adventure. And if we don't like something, guess what? You stop that piece and you move on to the next thing. And I'm sure you guys are going to appreciate this, because half the people around you are going, I really didn't expect them to go finish through and follow through all that. Be like, yes, that thing right there, because I wanted to do something else. And we just kind of push that off to the side, and we don't live behind a piece that says, but I didn't finish that. Yeah, because there was nothing left to finish. It wasn't for you. And that's okay.
Yeah.
We're allowed to be okay with all the stuff that we're just okay with. And that's the hardest part as adults, is this wrap up of fear under expectation that we're going to disappoint. Yeah. You're only disappointing yourself.
Yeah. Man, you hit.
I'm here, the giggling.
you got me on that one. I'm just like, wow, I second it full-heartedly. What truth that is. Because a lot of people, when it comes to, I know when I teach people, I teach 5 different steps to go from where they are to where they want to go. And that first step is belief and mindset. And a lot of people think that mindset is just positivity. So much deeper than that. Sure, positive attitude is great. Thinking about things that are going to happen is awesome. But and hope for the future is there. But it's so much deeper. Mm-hmm. It's figuring out what you're wanting to move forward with. It's being able to accept yourself, strengths and weaknesses and all. It's being able to do exactly what you said, to be able to get past that fear. And I'd love to share with the people who are listening a few steps that I've done to be able to help out myself in achieving things, and like hopefully help other people. Which is the 5 steps. Like the first one is that belief and mindset. But second is be a GPS. Now I do know what a GPS is. I'm not that young. So for those who don't know what a GPS is, you go on your phone and there's the Maps app and you click on it. And on there, it asks you 2 questions. It asks you, where do you want to go? You figure out your destination. Second one is, where are you at right now? And a lot of people don't realize that's so crucial for it, because it's automatically put in. Mm-hmm. And so if we know where we're at and we know where we want to go, then we know the direction that we're able to head, which then leads into step 3, which is the reverse engineering of a goal, which, just like if you've ever been to a restaurant and they have those little kids maps with the mazes on there, I never go from start to finish. I always visualize the finish, go backwards to the start. So when I finally put crayon to paper, then I can just do it flawlessly. And that's what I've found that we got to do with our goals, is we start at the end and then work backwards to hit the milestones, to create the blueprint and plan to then be able to move forward. And and this works with so many different things. I had a client who his goal was to get a girlfriend. And so I'm like, okay, not the most unique, the really unique that with the people I work with, but it still works, because we went down the whole list. It was, to get a girlfriend, you got to have a girl that's a friend. To have a girl that's a friend, you gotta be in a group. of friends that's a girl. Like it's funny, but it's so simple this way. How do you get that group? That divides into two. Of the one, you got to be able to be at the places where they're at. And we'll put a pin in that. And then two, which is being able to talk with your friends. How do you talk with your friends and engage with them to then work up to getting a girlfriend? Well, that breaks off into two, which is one, you got to be yourself. Nobody likes a fake person. And then the other side of you got to build the actual skill of communication, which is the listening, which is the being able to ask questions, being able to just simple small talk with them. And so from there, we're able to just from that breakdown go from the wanting a girlfriend to then actionable steps of you got to be at events, you got to be yourself, so self-confidence, self-courage, self-belief, and then being able to then be able to have that skill of communication. And just from simple reverse engineering, we had the action plan to go forward, which then went into step 4, which is the 2% rule that I've come up with that's helped me, which is 2% action every single day to get to where you want to go. And if your end goal is 100%, then 2% is just that small little step to then start moving forward. For me on my journey, when I started trying to read 12 books, the first 2% was walking to the bookshelf and picking the book. What was the next 2%? Opening the book and reading chapter 1. And so it was from the steps to get there. So 2% action every day. And there's my girl in the corner right there. And then the last one is the rinse and repeat, the adapt and adjust, because you can't just do things once. You got to filter it through. Mm-hmm. And so from changing our mindset to leading it through those different steps to create that plan to take action and then just readjust has definitely helped me to achieve what I want. Hopefully for those who are listening, that's helped you as well. But it's just wrapping it all together. It's so crucial at the beginning to build that mindset and to push past that fear, which it's just false evidences appearing real. They're not real. We just got to keep pushing past that into where we're wanting to go.
I think there's a little person that says, Dad, you said an hour and it's been an hour and 7 minutes. I'm ready.
You're like, Dad, you went over. And I'm like, okay.
I think that is cute as it can be. You know, we can be here all day, and we talked before about doing a half day, doing a full day, maybe making it a summit. So we'll do all that. And I think we have to wrap this up because there's a little person that wants her daddy back. And I don't blame her. It's Saturday. You know, she's like, let's go. But I think that we also need to drop a little bit of information about what's going on right now. And even if you're watching this in 2035 on a recording on YouTube somewhere, you know, right now, today, live, those fires are still happening in California. There's still people that are having, you know, they're homeless. They literally have woken up with nothing and trying to figure it out. So, Dr. Cheri, can you just give us a couple of minutes of advice? Because, you know, it's not just box up your old clothes and ship them there. Where are you shipping them to? It's an entire city, an entire county community that's gone now. So can you give a little advice of how they can help?
There are 7 different fires, though you won't see those actually on all of the news. You'll see the totality of probably the main 5. A lot of that is being blocked from the news right now because it's creating a lot of backlash. So really going into the Pasadena, Altadena areas, and then from the Pacific Palisades, because it's coming so quickly over the hill and closer to, you know, the Oaks side and coming down, it's a little bit of a safety first, precautions first, before just jumping in and sending all your donations over or driving down and doing donations, because I'm doing like a whole caravan of box trucks for clothing, because during times like this, really the thought of shopping for clothes, because you only ran out, one of my dearest, longest friends not only lost one home when he went to go stay the next night at cousin's house further away, another 40, 50 miles away, 2 more fires broke out there. And now they're getting ready to lose that house too, or if it might be already gone. And so people are now fleeing past 1 or 2 homes and they're going into hotels. Airbnb is offering a wonderful short-term relocation program for anybody that has lost their homes, but bringing in supplies, hygiene, all the stuff that they just don't expect people that have lost everything to think about. What am I going to wear? How am I going to get there? You know, we've got to figure out. I no longer have a car. Many people in Palisades had to just leave their car because they moved so fast and they couldn't get them down. And so it's transportation. How can we help by, you know, donating that way? So think out of the box and think about what would you need if you were laying in bed with, may I joke, with the man cold. You know, I can't do anything right now. I want to say, please someone come hand me the soup and everything else. Yes. Right. Coach, am I wrong?
Yeah.
Because it requires a multitasking of the brain that we don't necessarily want to have when we're ill. And if you're, anyways, I won't go completely there, but think about the things that the person would need or people or communities would need. And there's so many resources. Social media has been great about posting the locations of those resource centers, but they're changing fast and quick because now those places are also too close to the fire and are being evacuated.
Yeah.
So beyond a lot of the local restaurants, the Red Cross, other emergency agencies, they're covering the basic staples to keep humans alive, which is the food and water, sanitation, access to sanitary items. But beyond that, kids' comfort items, animals stuff. Animals actually are being very well taken care of out there right now. But clothing, educational items, giving distractions to people like a book here and there. It does amazing things. But check in locally. I would say check Instagram. Some of the Facebook groups are catching pretty quickly on locations and updating the locations. It's not hard to find. Google LA fire donation drop off, and you're going to find corners, stores, but just double check before you make any more moves that it's even safe to get in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about like blood donation? Should you do that in your community? Would that help them? What about?
Absolutely. So in the Las Vegas community, like Vitalent is one of the ones that we have all over the valley. So you could find blood donation, and there's different types of blood donations that you can do. Please be very mindful to know your specs. If you've taken any aspirin within the last 14 days, you're technically not allowed to go ahead and donate blood. But there is whole blood, there's plasma, there is simply platelets. Give what you can. It makes a difference during these times, especially with burn victims. You know, plasma is going to be very important for cell regeneration. It never hurts anybody to have a good bank of that in. If you have certain conditions that you were unaware of, higher cholesterol too, just by the way, your iron level has to be right if you're going to do certain types of donations. So it's more than just you giving. It's also you need to take care of yourself in this, and I'm glad you brought that up, blood donation. You must have the self-care in place in order to give in this instance, quite literally. This isn't just a figurative statement. So make sure you have that good, healthy set of meals leading up to your blood donation, because it makes a difference on how they can use it in surgical centers. It makes a difference on where they can really apply that. And give them the best that you can, because you were the best to yourself in that moment. Even if you don't prioritize yourself on a regular basis and you're wanting to do this, this is one way to really show that you care for yourself and for others.
You know, and then I just want to say that I was told, and I saw it, that TikTok is stopping all buttons, you know, to GoFundMe's and things like that.
Yes.
Because there are people out there, and, you know, I could get into it, but there are people out there that are taking advantage of this. And they're putting up, you know, things, and they're conning people, which there's a special place, personally, my opinion. There's a special place for it, you know, people that would do something like that right now. And it's like, so if you're going to donate money, if you're going to, you know, do everything like that, if you're halfway around the world and you just want to figure out a way to help and you can't get to California right now, you know, just research where you're sending it, you know, and send it to known organizations or like the Red Cross or something. research where you're sending it, because there's quite a few people out there that are literally taking advantage of this and creating pages on celebrities even that are posting now
Oh,
going,
yeah.
I'm not asking for you guys to send me money. Yes, I lost my home, but I'll be okay,
Right.
but they're doing that in their name. And thanks to AI, they can do that and actually make videos of that celebrity and that person, and it looks like it's them. So just be cautious out there, and we send love and light and anything that we can from our end. And for me, I just think this was amazing. We went like 15 minutes over, but if the doctor knows me at all, we always go over when it's something really, really good. And I
Yes.
hope we can do this again. Thanks, Coach, for putting this together, because I think this is absolutely fantastic, and it'll just get bigger and better and all that kind of stuff. How do you want people that want to be a part of it again to reach out to you, Coach?
Yeah. So a few different ways, and I say it that way for this reason. First off, before I jump into that, Dr. Cheri, I would love, I know that you and I both have something that we'd love to give the people who are watching today, which is our ebooks. I'd love for you just to quickly go over like what your ebook, and just a quick few sentence of what that is for you, and what it helps you with while I drop the links in the chat for them.
So, because I work from a very holistic perspective, and my clinics were always about the holistic perspective and whole person approach to treatment, I cover all 8 dimensions of wellness. Well, those of us that are in professional capacities, we tend to forget to take care of ourselves in one or more of those arenas. And so when I decided to put together a small book, and it is a pocket-sized book, I literally measured my suit pocket. So whether it doesn't matter what kind of blazer or suit or even tuxedo pocket this fits, it's a pocket professional's guide to wellness. It's going to cover all 8 dimensions of wellness. It's going to give you little places for notes, right down to even your fitness notes or how to have little hand notes. And for those of us over a certain age where we do require possibly, those reading glass things, this actually can be downloaded on your cell phone, and the font is large enough for you to still see it and still read it without having to go, okay, let me go ahead and do one of these things. But it's important because not everybody understands that we do live in a multidimensional world that is our own, and we have to take care of each of those pieces. We're never going to be 100% in any one. So just in case anybody wonders, well, once I feel that, it's going to be good, and I need all of them to feel good, and I did this right. No, we are like water. It's fluid. We are going to flow in and out. But this just kind of puts things back into check and into perspective of, hey, where am I with my relationship or my occupation or my financial status? Where am I at with my spirituality? Am I just on some level of awareness? And so I find it as a nice little thing that I created because I am one of those people that tends to forget. And I know a lot of us like that. So if I could help, hey, here's one way to help. So happy downloads.
And thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, it's been great to be able to have this time to help own our dyslexia and be able to bring experts like Dr. Cheri in to help us out with it. I also love to share it with you guys, my ebook as well, which I have a QR code right here. It's for the Dyslexic Achievers Blueprint. So those 5 steps that I shared, it goes more in depth. A lot of pictures in there. I love pictures more than words. So you'll be able to find that there. And you'll be able to scan it here. If you can't scan it here, or if you're watching on your phone, the website's right down there for you guys, and you'll be able to grab that. And I'm just so ecstatic to be able to be here with you two, be able to spend this hour and 18 minutes together.
19.
Almost 19.
Almost 19. Wait for it. Almost there.
There
we go, 19.
Yep, that's us.
That's us. To be able to be here with you guys. And so I would love to hear from Tigo, Dr. Cheri, any final words as we wrap this intro of Own Your Dyslexia. We're going to have more in the future. Any last wise words that you would love to share with the audience?
Dr. Cheri.
Hey, isn't it great to be an owner? You're not going to rent dyslexia from anybody because then you have a return policy. So if you're going to own it, make it yours, make it the best thing that you possibly can, because there's a beauty in it. Even if you haven't found it yet, go search for it because it's there.
You know, I love the quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Mhm.
And whenever I run into a brick wall, I tell my kids my nose is bent because I've run into so many brick walls in my life. And whenever you run into a brick wall, if you tell yourself you can't, guess what? There's nothing anybody else can do because you've already convinced yourself. So I'm guilty of it. Doctor knows it. I call her all the time and she's like, how about going around the wall? Good idea, you know? So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Think you can. Why not? You got one life, you know, and with everything that's crazy going on in this world, we don't know what we're going to wake up to tomorrow.
Mhm.
So don't stop yourself, whether you're 12 or 81. If you got a dream, reach out. And if there's some way for me to help or, you know, your friends and family to help, let us know. And let's make these dreams happen because we only get it once. This is it. There's no guarantee we get to come back again. And I don't know about y'all. I don't know if I want to come back and do this again. So let's take advantage of what we got, you know, and thank you, Coach, so much for putting this together. I look forward to what, you know, the next step is, a full day or half day or something, because we're going to go over no matter what you say. And thanks, Dr. Cheri, for, you know, always being in my corner. And whenever I call, she says, let me check my calendar. Absolutely, I'll be there. And she blocks out extra time because she knows we're going to go over. Thanks so much for hanging out with me.
Oh, thanks for having me. My pleasure.
You two are amazing. And thank you, audience, for staying here and watching it with us. Tigo, you asked the question, how can they figure out when the next one is? How can they become part of this community? Each of you can jump over to the Dyslexic Achievers Hub YouTube channel. That's going to be the best place to be able to do it. It's a brand new YouTube channel. Just last couple of weeks it's been up, and we're going to get more videos out there about owning your dyslexia, more lives out there and things like this to be able to bring together this dyslexic community, because it is that important. Like, each of us would not spend 1 hour, 21 minutes, and 52 seconds on here.
55, 56.
Right?
Look at all of us. We're like, okay, now we're stuck in the corner. This is what happens, folks. This is real life.
Oh my goodness. Somebody hit the hang up button and we'll be here all day. I love you guys. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.